we postponed the class on artificial intelligence, and I gave you readings on the topic. So we'll talk about it now in this class. So what is artificial intelligence? Well, the easy way of looking at it is robots. So what movies come to your mind? RoboCop. Huh? Huh? iRobot. Terminator. Right? Does the word Skynet come to your memory? Okay, so it is artificial because it's man-made, right? So we are talking about intelligent beings that are made by people, that are made by human beings. And what issues does artificial intelligence raise? What's the issue that's being talked about most often when we talk about artificial intelligence?
Will they take over the world in the future?
Okay, that they'll take over the world in the future, but probably in the distant future. What is the question, or what will they do in the shorter term? They'll take over the world in the distant future. What are they doing now, like next year? The artificial intelligence or robots. Yes, taking over our jobs. Yes. Much of our work is being done by artificial intelligence. The latest achievement of artificial intelligence was shown by Google. Have you guys used the Google Translator? Probably you guys have not used Google Translator for Korean to English translation or English to Korean translation, believing that it's not that good. But just last week, I was shocked to find out how good the artificial intelligence-based translation became, even from English to Korean or Korean to English. You can test yourself now. It is sometimes, if not better, nearly better, nearly as good as a human translation. Now, we are not going to talk about all those issues raised by artificial intelligence, but we'll talk about artificial intelligence issues only in relation to digital society. So, the first issue that comes to my mind is, what did we mean by digital society in the beginning of the semester? What was meant by the term digital society, which is, which is the name for our class? What are ethical issues, or what are new ethical issues or norms presented by this new society called digital society? What did we mean when we say, we are living in a digital society? Well, we meant that we are living in a society where people are empowered by access to and ability to spread data, right? Access to data from all sources around the world, and access to and ability to spread data to, all possible destinations around the world. So one question that comes to my mind is, so if the power of internet, the value of the digital society comes from the fact that people can communicate with one another. People can access one another's data so easily. If that's the power of the internet, if that's the power of the internet, is that power still valuable if the internet no longer connects people but connects machines with one another? Because that's what's going to happen. So in the past, through the internet, you could ask an interpreter living in the other side of the earth to do translation for you. But now, what will be waiting for you on the other side of the earth is not a person, but is a machine who will do translation for you, if you need translation. So connecting machines, is that also valuable as connecting people? Well, it depends, right? If those machines that are connected, that are better connected to one another, can actually provide better services to people, because there will be some people on the internet. There will be some people who are directly connected to one another, even though some people will be replaced by machines. But there will be people who ultimately need the services of the machines. So there will be some valuable services. So, if you start with that, you can raise a further question, right? What if all people are replaced by machines, right? Is connecting these machines with one another as valuable to the society as it is as connecting people with one another. So that's the broader question, and we can kind of narrow the question to smaller ones. All right. So let's look at the issue of privacy. Okay. So we are talking about replacing person with a machine. Okay. When is privacy violated? When is privacy infringed? Well, when another person obtains information about you against your will, right? Then we say, that is privacy violation of me, right? What if the thing that's obtaining information about me against my will is not a person, but is a machine? For instance, let's say you go into you walk into a bathroom and you are about to take a shower, you undress, you turn around and there is a mirror, right, looking at you. right? Mirror looking at your full nude body. Do you feel that it's privacy infringing? Of course not, because the mirror doesn't have any mind. Mirror is just an object. Okay? Now, if there is a person staring at your nude body, you will feel that your privacy is violated. Yes? Okay, what if it's not a machine? It's neither a machine, it's neither a mirror, it's neither a mirror nor a person, but it is a robot. Do you feel that your privacy is being violated? What do you think about that? Let's say you have a robot. There are some early stage AI robot, like educational robot that talks to your kids, that answers some questions to your kids and can play with your kids. What if that robot, just somehow rolled into your bathroom without you knowing? Would you feel that that is a violating your privacy? By, looking at your naked body? What do you think? If you think it's a privacy violation, okay, raise your hands. If you think it's not, raise your hands. Okay, so you guys are awfully generous to robots. If you look at Google ad services, I keep talking about this, for some reason I keep talking about this time and again. But, when you write an email to your friends, and let's say, you talk about like going to a restaurant, let's go to a Chinese restaurant for dinner, right? Then the machine, so the program attached to Gmail server will read the content and add an advertisement for a Chinese restaurant and send to your friends. So when your friends receive your mail, you will have advertisement for a restaurant. Obviously there is and it will be a Chinese restaurant nearby, right? And very popular. What if you say, what if you write in the email, we went to Chinese restaurant last week, so let's not go there, right? But the machine will, read and recognize the text and will not put an advertisement for Chinese restaurant. It will add advertisement for something else, right? So it's all done by machines. It's not done by any human agent. So most of you who raised the hands that having a robot in your bathroom look at your nude body is not a privacy infringement, probably will agree that having Google machine read your email to attach an advertisement is no privacy violation, right? Other people didn't think so. So some people complained that even machine reading the contents of my email has privacy implications for me. Some people complained, so Google stopped doing that. I don't know, whether they have resumed or not. Now, that issue, Whether that is a privacy violation or not was really sidestepped by a condition in the terms of use of Gmail. If you read the terms of use, who has read terms of use of any internet service or any platform service or any mail service that you guys are using? Have you read terms of use of Facebook? Okay, you read. All right. Anyone else has read it? Okay. Did you find anything useful? Okay. Did you has anyone read the terms of use of Gmail? Okay. In the terms of use of Gmail, there is a provision that says the contents of mail will be used for advertising. So when you agree to use Gmail, okay, when you agree to use Gmail, you have agreed to at least let the machine read the contents of mail, right? Now, so strictly speaking, since you have agreed to such use, it's not a privacy violation. But people are saying, oh, who actually reads the terms of use? That provision should not save or justify what is a privacy violation. How about what if the robot in your bathroom, looking at your nude body now, can record what it sees? How do you feel about that? Would you feel that it is privacy violation if it's a recording? Yeah? All right, many of you are nodding, right? So why is that? I mean, it's not like the robot is going to record and broadcast it on Facebook or Twitter, right? It will just keep a secret copy for whatever purpose that the machine is supposed to achieve. But we still feel that it is a privacy violation because probably it raises the risk of future privacy violation, because once a copy is made, there's always chance that, if the robot malfunctions, you may throw it away and somebody else may get hold of it and download a video clip showing your nude body, right? And recording raises that risk. So that may be a privacy violation as well. And also, artificial intelligence related to right to be forgotten as well. You all remember what right to be forgotten was, right? So, right to be forgotten is supposedly a right of a person to force a search engine, right? To force a search engine to delist, right? Take off the list of search results. Take off the list of search results those contents that the person wants to be forgotten about, right? Now, the theory behind right to be forgotten is that the search engine is some sort of a robot as well, okay? And it has something close to artificial intelligence, and the search engine also, search engine acts like, in a way, acts like a robot in your bathroom, right? Because once it receives a search word, it basically travels around the world. It travels around the internet to find all the URLs, to find all web pages that contain the search word, and gives you a ranking, gives you a list of all those web pages that contain the search word. And the theory behind right to be forgotten is that what the search engine is doing is really controlling data about other people, because it will look for web pages and URL that contain particular search words about another person. But if you think about it, the search engine is not really recording. Search engine is not really. How should I say this? Search engine is not really conscious of the data that it's picking up, right? For instance, let's say someone put a search term KS Park and Ethics and Information Society, right? So KS Park, Ethics and Information Society. And the search engine will bring up web pages that have those phrases, KS Park, Ethics and Information Society, right? Now, those web pages and URLs containing the search terms they are not really being, their existence is not really being felt by the search engine, right? I mean, in the way that when a mirror in the bathroom is looking at you, the mirror is not really feeling or is being aware of your existence or your body's presence there. It is just reflecting the data. It is just reflecting your optical presence, or the optical presence of your body. It doesn't really understand. The mirror doesn't really understand what it means that you exist or your body exists in that space called the bathroom. The same thing with the search engine. Search engine is not really conscious of the contents of URLs or web pages that contain the search term KS Park, Ethics and Information Society. It is just mechanically just bringing up all those web pages and URLs that contain those search terms without really thinking, right? So the question you can ask is, should that also be considered some sort of privacy violation? Because the idea behind data protection law is that if you are if you are aggregating personal data of many people in a form that's readily searchable, then you are being a data processor or data controller, and you should get consent from all the data subjects, right? Get consent from all the data subjects for the processing of the data about them. But the reason for such restriction is because data controller is conscious of the meaning of all this data. If the hospital controls, 1 million patients' diagnosis or prognosis, the health records, the hospital is conscious of, right? The hospital staff is fully aware of all those, data about the patients, the meaning of the patient's data. But what search engine is doing is not really similar, right? I mean, what search engine is doing is much more mechanistic, right? It's more like putting the data in a putting the data on a USB, right? If I put a lot of data on USB, and I know I know the data that's stored on USB. If I give a USB to you or to one of you, and you don't know what's on it, that doesn't make you a data controller, right? That doesn't make you responsible for all the. That doesn't make you responsible for protecting the privacy of all the data that's saved on USB when you are just mechanically just relaying that USB to some other person. But I, who is conscious of the meanings of all the data on it, right? I'm responsible. I'm a data controller, and I should be responsible. So this issue about privacy has implications for what to do with the issue of right to be forgotten. Because, if you remember, if you don't remember, you can watch the lecture video again. It has implications for right to be forgotten because right to be forgotten is based on the view of a search engine as a robot or entity. Is based on a theory, the theory of a search engine that assumes that search engine is an entity that's fully aware of the meanings of all the data that it is presenting to whoever is doing search queries, right? But search engine is not really doing that. Okay. There is an issue about free speech as well. Okay, how about when machines make decisions about what data will be shown on the internet, right? So, a human person, government official, can order some content to be taken down for violating reputation of another person. So for causing defamation, but machine can do that as well, right? Machine can artificially intelligent machine can surf the web and come up with URLs and web pages that the artificially intelligent robot believes is defamatory. Is that also infringement of freedom of expression? Well, yes, I mean, if fully legitimate information is being taken down, whether it's being taken down by a machine or whether it's taken down by a person, you know, it will be a violation of freedom of expression. Okay? But how about in the case of prior censorship? We haven't learned the concept of prior censorship yet, but you know, we can learn it now. Prior censorship is a concept that a system of requiring people to submit in advance the contents of their speech is illegitimate. Okay? Any system of requiring people to submit the contents of their expression in advance to a government official for review and approval, okay, is illegitimate. That is the principle of prior censorship. So the principle says prior censorship is bad, absolutely bad, and it should not be allowed in any democratic society. And why is it bad? Because prior censorship requires prior submission, right? Advanced submission of the contents of your speech. If the reviewing government official disapproves or disagrees with those contents will risk being permanently blocked, okay? Will be completely blocked from being made available to any other person. So there's a risk of complete blockade or blockage. And also another reason is because it requires you to submit the contents of your speech to a government official, you are running the risk of being retaliated. You are running the risk of being, you know, singled out for suppression or persecution by the government if the government doesn't like the contents of your speech, right? So for those reasons, prior censorship is considered a bad thing. Now, how about if the law doesn't require you to submit the contents to a government official, but what if the law requires you to submit the contents in advance to a machine, right? Would that be prior censorship? Right? So if law currently, if there's a law that requires everyone to get pre-approval of require everyone to submit pre-approval of their postings, online postings, it will be clearly illegitimate. Okay, it will be prior censorship. But what if prior approval is given by a machine? Okay, so there is international movement against child pornography, and they try to ban child pornography, but these pedophiles just won't stop, right? And because of the nature of the internet, child pornography can appear in any web page. So what if all the governments pass a law that say, okay, if we pre-screen all your postings, that's not democratic. That's we'll lose the power of the internet. There is a risk of retaliation and suppression, persecution by the government for undesirable content, right? The government may identify people who are critical of government policies and may use them to single out and discriminate against the anti-governmental voices and people. So we're not going to pre-screen. We're not going to pre-screen. We are not going to pre-screen the. We're not going to have government officers pre-screen all your postings. We'll have a machine pre-screen your postings, and that machine will be programmed not to identify anti-governmental messages or dissident voices or politically sensitive material. It's programmed only to look for child pornography, and that's it. How would you feel? Would you feel that that is a violation of your freedom of speech? What do you think about that? What if, some child pornography appear on YouTube as well? And yes, when YouTube has some extra resources, it hires people to surf the web, surf the YouTube site to take down the child pornography, right? What if it's done, but they look at the contents only after the postings come up, okay? They don't pre-screen all the postings. They don't pre-screen. They don't look at the contents. They don't look at the contents before it comes up, before it is uploaded. But under the new system, it will be reviewed before it is uploaded, right? Now, if it's pre-screened by a person, people will hate it, right? People will not feel that they are really free in uploading things, because whatever goes on will be the result of the approval of the reviewing person. What if the machine does it, right? What if YouTube attaches some artificial intelligence to the uploading function, to the uploading server, so that it identifies and takes out nothing but child pornography? Would you feel that you are losing the freedom of uploading things, without anyone's approval? So that's okay with you. Well, what if that's okay with you, how about adding some more functions to that reviewing machine? Okay, not just child pornography. We'll have the machine also identify and call out hate speech. How do you feel about that? So the machine will automatically, for instance, identify swastika, right? And will suppress any uploading of images or videos that include swastika. Is that okay with you? Some of you are nodding, but if that happens, my lecture video will be also suppressed, because my lecture also shows the images of swastika, right? Right? So there is the danger of excessive censorship, but still, people feel, for some reason, we are not exactly sure why, but people feel, for some reason, people feel okay about being pre-screened by a machine, although they feel infringed and oppressed when they are pre-screened by a person. Why is that, right? Is the machine fairer, right? Is that why the queen in, the Snow White always asks the mirror those questions? Because the mirror is fairer than, Snow White and the queen or any other human beings. There is a same question with the net neutrality, right? Yes, net neutrality bans discrimination between data, discrimination among data. So network operators cannot, cannot block or throttle means slow down, right? Cannot block or slow down certain data for whatever reason, right? Well, the only reason they are allowed to accelerate or speed up processing of certain data is when that data constitutes parts of a video or voice communication, because there the data packets have to come without delay, right? While the data packets constituting email, they don't have to come one next to each other, right? They don't have to come in a seamless they don't have to come in a seamless stream. As long as they arrive before the time the receiver of the email opens it, it's okay if they arrive in some isolated fragments, right? But for data constituting video and voice, that should not be allowed. But other than that discrimination, discriminating data of different contents is just absolutely banned by the net neutrality rule. But, net neutrality is only a rule, only one value. There can be a greater value, right? So maybe we can make an exception that says, all right, the data that has emergency messages shall be passed on earlier than data that have only recreational significance, right? So like 911, an email calling for emergency response, emergency medical response, those emails will be processed before other emails, proposing a dinner at a Chinese restaurant. Okay. Now, if a person makes the decision, we cannot let a person make that decision because then we'll have a person reading the contents of our emails, right? That will violate our privacy and free speech, right? So what do? We have a machine scan the contents of all our messages, chat app messages, email, right? And then the machine evaluates, which messages should be delivered earlier. Is that okay? It's not okay. Why not? Net neutrality is not it's not the absolute fact. It's not as if net neutrality is the most important thing in the world. Maybe saving lives is more important than requiring network operators to treat all the data equally. Some data are socially more valuable than other data. That is true by anybody's standard, right? Why not have a machine, since you guys seem to be, and all of us seem to be okay by being pre-screened by a machine as opposed to a person, and and feel okay about showing your private parts to a machine as opposed to a person. Why not have a machine, scan our private and public messages and process all the socially more beneficial messages first, earlier than the messages that are not. Okay, these are all issues presented by artificial intelligence. Also, intellectual property. Now, these days, machine can write newspaper articles, and they do it very well. So, Associated Press, one of the biggest media companies in the world, many of the articles are written by computers, not by human reporters. Who owns copyright to those stories, right? And we have a software that writes music for you, right? So you put in your motifs, right? If you feel sad, you put in sadness. If you feel giggly, you put giggly. If you feel sad and giggly, you put in sad and giggly. And the software will use the existing library of music and then compose music for you that corresponds to the motifs that you provided. And then there's a software that writes a novel for you as well. So you give a summary of what should go into a novel, and you kind of give a genre. If it's a horror, you can choose. It's a horror, comedy, right? And then the software will actually churn out a full novel that corresponds to your synopsis and your theme. Okay? What happens to the copyright to all these products made by the machines? Who should own that? The people who wrote the software, or people who use the software to create the products? Who should own that? It's either of the two, right? Or should there be no copyright for such a thing? I mean, if the software is like a word processor, right? Let's say I use Microsoft Word to write a novel. Who owns the copyright? I own it. Microsoft doesn't own it, right? So maybe I should. So maybe the one who used the artificial intelligence, the one who used the software to create the product should own the copyright, right? But if you look at it from the perspective of the software developer, I mean, whatever final products there are, it's something that the software developer has either directly envisioned or has indirectly envisioned by making available a set of possibilities. Okay? Whatever was produced was within the realm of possibility that software developer created, right? Let's say the software developer, wrote built-in, 10 different stories or 10 different story components. And there will be, let me see, if it's 10 times, 9 times, 8 times. So if the rule is that, the novel cannot repeat the same story component twice, then there will be 10 times, 9 times, 8 times, 7 times, 6. So there will be 1,024 permutations, possible permutations, right? But that's all within the realm of possibility already imagined by the software developer. And what the user is doing is just selecting just one of that 1,000 permutations. So in that sense, it is a creation of the software developer, not the user, right? So now I'm talking about, these are cutting edge issues. So there are no answers to all these issues I'm talking about privacy, free speech, intellectual property. Now, one way to answer the question, all this question, is to think about whether AI is a human being. AI should be treated like a human being or should be treated like a machine, right? And why do we feel okay being reviewed by the machine? Or why do we feel being exposed to a machine when we don't feel okay being exposed to a human to a human agent? Probably because the human being is an ethical agent. It can evaluate you, right? If a human agent reads my writing or looks at my body, will form certain normative perceptions. If it's a machine will just take in the data, right? I mean, this is you can think of this blackboard, this whiteboard as a machine. If I write down, I cheated in my exam, blah, 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 that data is reflected on the blackboard, but the whiteboard does not form any opinion about this statement. But if I give this to some being that is capable of ethical evaluation, it will now have lower opinion of me, right? I mean, that this is written on the whiteboard does not, it is of no significance to the whiteboard itself, to this object. You can think of, think of a camera, right? Yes, camera can capture a lot of things, capture a lot of private details of other people, but the camera doesn't think. Yes, camera has probably a lot of private information about other people, but the camera doesn't form any ethical opinions about people who are captured in the camera, right? So the question is whether the machine, the artificial intelligence, should be considered an ethical agent, and what's the basis of granting someone an ethical status? A being, right? An entity. When do you grant that being an ethical status? One answer is that, or one minimum that you require from an ethical being, I think, is free will. You know what's meant by free will, right? You all have free will. Okay, does this chair have a free will? It has of course, it doesn't. It will move only on the stimuli provided by a person who sits on it, right? The machines, they do only what they are told to do. So, for instance, cars don't have free will. So, when you get into an accident while driving a car, you are held responsible because you are considered an ethical agent, not the car. Why? Because you have a free will. You had opportunity to avoid that accident. The car didn't, because the car does not have capacity to do anything other than what it's told to do by the driver. Yes? So we have to decide whether the machines have free will. If they are, maybe they meet the minimum requirement of being an ethical agent. And if it is an ethical agent, then we should feel uncomfortable being pre-screened by AI. We should feel uncomfortable being exposed to AI on private parts, right? Oops. So, okay, so starting this Thursday, we'll go into this free will and determinism. So do the reading, and there is a very interesting article about free will and determinism, and I'll see you this Thursday, and this Thursday we'll review some of your scripts as well, scripts for the video, okay? And I'm not going to review all the scripts, but I'll just review some selected ones, okay? All right, thank you, and see you on Thursday.